Welcome to the AI Checkpoints. Before we jump in, just our standard disclaimer. This content is generated by AI. Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty significant. Feels like a real evolution in how we interact with LLMs. Our sources are focused on OpenAI's big announcement from September 25th, 2025 about this thing called ChatGPT Pulse. And it really sounds like more than just a feature update, doesn't it? It seems to shift the whole dynamic.
It absolutely does. I think for you, the listener, the mission here is to really grasp how this moves away from what some are calling the query tax. Traditionally using AI meant you always had to ask the question, you had to keep the context going, figure out the next step. But this Pulse thing, based on the announcement, it's aiming for a proactive AI, one that kind of anticipates what you need.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean for ChatGPT to, start the conversation?
Yeah.
To leave the chat window, so to speak.
So the main idea, they're rolling it out first as a preview, right?
Right.
To pro users on mobile. That's the plan. Pro users first. Then they mentioned expanding it to Plus subscribers and eventually everyone. And the core concept is that Pulse does its own research proactively and then gives you these personalized updates.
Right, straight to your screen.
Exactly. And what's really interesting under the hood is this idea of asynchronous research. It means ChatGPT isn't just sitting there waiting, it's actually running research tasks for you, in the background, continuously.
Continuously.
Yeah, the goal seems to be delivering key info. You need like a quick daily brief so you can, as they put it, get back to what matters most, not get stuck figuring out the perfect prompt or scrolling endlessly.
That asynchronous part, though, it makes you wonder about the resources needed. Constantly researching for millions of users. That sounds computationally expensive.
Oh, absolutely. That's sort of the hidden cost, isn't it? Maintaining context, running these background checks, probably using retrieval augmented generation, RAG pipelines. It's way more intensive than just answering a one-off query.
So OpenAI must be betting big that the engagement, the utility, makes it worth that extra compute cost.
Seems like it. They need users to find it valuable enough to justify keeping those background processes running.
And how does this information actually get delivered? You mentioned updates.
Yeah, they arrive as these topical visual cards, designed to be easy to scan quickly.
Okay, visual cards.
But here's a key detail. Each update, each card, is only there for that day.
Really? Just for the day?
Yep. Unless you actively save it as a chat or maybe follow up on it somehow. Otherwise, poof, it's gone the next day.
Interesting choice. Why make them ephemeral like that?
Yeah.
Seems counterintuitive if it did useful research.
I think the thinking there is likely about avoiding digital clutter, preventing another endless feed we feel obligated to manage. They probably want it to feel like a timely, high-value briefing. If it wasn't crucial today, let the AI figure out what is crucial tomorrow based on fresh context. Keeps it relevant.
Okay, that makes sense. Reducing the cognitive load.
Exactly. Now let's talk about how it figures out what to show you, that personalization engine. Apparently, each night, it synthesizes information to decide on the next day's Pulse updates, and it draws from three main places.
3 sources.
Yeah. Your explicit memory settings, things you've told it to remember about you.
Okay.
Your regular chat history, the conversations you've been having, and crucially, the direct feedback you give Pulse itself.
So the memory versus chat history distinction is important. Memory is the stuff you told it to know. History is just everything else you talked about.
Precisely. Memory is more curated facts. History is the raw conversation data.
And the examples they gave really bring this to life, don't they?
They do. The OpenAI source mentions things like follow-ups on topics you discuss a lot. Makes sense.
Yeah, like if you're always talking about, climate change policy, it might surface a new report.
Right. But it's not just big stuff. It could be practical things, like ideas for quick, healthy dinners if you've been asking about recipes.
Or even helping with bigger goals. They mentioned training for a triathlon.
Exactly. If you've discussed that goal, Pulse might proactively suggest, here are your next training steps based on your schedule or something like that.
That's quite a step up.
It is. And it gets even more powerful when you start connecting external apps.
Oh, yes, the integrations.
Right. They specifically mention optional links to things like Gmail and Google Calendar, giving it access to potentially your schedule, your email topics. That adds a whole other layer of context.
But they stress these are optional, right? Off by default.
Very much so. Opt-in only. and you can control it in settings, which is crucial because, well, that leads to the big trade-off.
Convenience versus privacy, essentially.
Exactly. To get the full benefit, like having it draft a meeting agenda based on your calendar and emails, or remind you about a birthday gift mentioned in a thread, you're giving it access to some pretty core personal data.
That requires a huge amount of trust in OpenAI's data handling and security.
Undeniably, users really have to weigh that potential utility against handing over their communication graph, as you said.
But assuming you do opt in, the potential utility seems pretty high.
Oh, yeah. The examples are compelling, like connecting your calendar could lead to it suggesting restaurants for an upcoming trip it sees on your schedule.
And it might cross-reference that with your past search history or food preferences mentioned in chats.
Potentially, yes. That level of proactive organization, it feels like a direct challenge to existing assistants like Siri or Google Assistant, but with the power of a large language model's deeper understanding.
So even though the AI is being proactive, you're not just a passive recipient, you can still steer it.
Definitely. There's a curate function. You tap that, and you can tell Pulse what you want it to look into for future updates.
So you can guide the research.
Precisely. And this is important for avoiding that filter bubble effect, right?
Ah, good point. If it only looked at past chats, you'd just get more of the same.
Exactly. But you can explicitly ask it for, say, a roundup of local events for the weekend.
Or tips on learning that new language you mentioned once.
Or even something super specific like, hey, tomorrow, focus on updates about professional tennis. You actively direct its attention.
And that ties into the feedback system, which sounds key. The thumbs up, thumbs down thing.
Yes, that simple binary feedback is incredibly important. It's essentially RLHF reinforcement learning from human feedback in action.
So each time you give a thumbs up or down on a card,
You're training your specific instance of Pulse. You're telling it more like this or less like this. And they mentioned you can view or delete that feedback history, giving you transparency and control. That's what makes it more personal and useful over time, according to OpenAI.
without that feedback, it would just stay generic.
It probably would, or it might drift based on just your passive chat history. The direct feedback sharpens its focus on what you find valuable, and they apparently saw this in their testing with college students in the ChatGPT lab.
Oh yeah, what did they find?
The source says many students only really started getting the value once they began actively using the feedback. Once they started telling Pulse what they wanted, its utility jumped significantly for them.
So user engagement with feedback is critical for it to work well.
It seems so. It confirms the model isn't static. It really does learn from how you interact with it.
And just quickly on the proactive side, there are safety checks involved too.
Yes, they included a note on that. Topics surfaced by Pulse still go through their standard safety filters to avoid generating harmful or policy-violating content.
Good to know. Okay, let's talk about that student example they cited, Isaac Seiler. It seemed like a really potent use case.
It really did illustrate the proactive part well. He'd had a conversation about managing his calendar and planning time off for a grant period in Taiwan.
Right, just a conversation. He didn't explicitly ask it to plan the trip logistics.
Exactly. But Pulse, using that context, inferred that logistical planning was the likely next step.
So went ahead and researched things for him.
Apparently so. The update he got included several logical steps ahead of where he was in his thinking, and the key bit was that it surfaced train and commute information. Within Taiwan stuff he admitted he wouldn't have even thought to look for yet.
Wow. So it didn't just answer a question, it anticipated a future need
Mm-hmm.
and provided relevant, actionable information he wasn't even looking for.
That's the core promise, isn't it? Moving beyond Q&A to actually executing steps in a thought process or task, saving mental energy and time.
Yeah, exposing you to things you didn't know you needed to know yet.
But let's also manage expectations. The sources are clear. This is still a preview.
It's not going to be perfect.
Right. It might sometimes miss the mark. The example given was suggesting tips for a project you finished yesterday. You know, asynchronous systems can have latency issues with real-time context.
So if it gets things wrong, what's the advice?
Don't just ignore it. Use the feedback. Thumbs down if it's irrelevant, thumbs up if it's spot on. Tell it directly what you need. It learns from that real-world usage.
Makes sense. Guide the learning process.
Precisely.
So looking ahead now, OpenAI calls Pulse the first step toward a new paradigm. Sounds pretty ambitious.
It really does. If you zoom out, it feels like they're shifting ChatGPT from being, a really smart tool you consult into something more like an invisible layer that just helps you, accelerates your thinking, your work, almost ambiently.
A true digital agent, maybe.
That seems to be the direction. The long-term vision described involves AI systems that can do more than just research they could potentially plan and even take helpful actions on your behalf based on your goals and direction.
So progress could happen on your goals even when you're not actively engaged with the AI.
That's the implication. Things moving forward in the background based on prior context and instructions.
And presumably, this gets richer as it connects to more apps.
Exactly. More data sources mean a better understanding of your context, your projects, your commitments. And they're also exploring delivering these insights not just in a morning briefing, but maybe at other relevant moments.
Like,
Like maybe a quick summary popping up just before you walk into a meeting noted in your calendar.
okay, that could be useful.
Or a reminder about a document draft you mentioned needing to revisit, perhaps surfacing a relevant resource right when you open that draft. Context-aware assistance throughout the day.
So wrapping this all up, if we synthesize this, the big picture is the AI stepping out of the chat box, becoming this proactive partner.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's trying to eliminate that query tax where the burden is always on you to initiate and provide context. Pulse flips that the AI takes the initiative based on learned context.
Which really changes the relationship.
It does. And maybe the provocative thought for you, the listener, is this. How is our whole approach to digital work and productivity going to change? What happens when you have an assistant that's constantly, quietly working to maintain momentum on your goals, doing some of that background research and planning without you needing to explicitly ask it every single time?
That's a fundamental shift in workflow, but potentially huge implications. Definitely something to think about. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Hit like and subscribe if you like the content. See you next time.